Hello again, everyone. We're in week 4 now of painting vignettes. This month has gone very quickly again. And this week I thought we should have a little bit of fun and painting some animals. I can hear you all groaning, but actually not so difficult as you may think. And I'll try to simplify the process for you. And I'm sure many of you have pets that you might like to have a try at painting. So these are the colours I'm going to use, and this week I'm going to demonstrate my little cat. I don't have this little cat anymore, I'm afraid, but she's such a pretty little thing, and I have this little photo of her, so I thought, and she's got lots of colours, so I thought that might work quite well. And these are all the colours. Many more colours in animals than you may actually think. So I'm going to get straight on and start painting. But at the same time, try not to labour over the whole process. I'm going to try and keep it nice and loose and free, and try and portray this little cat without putting too much detail and fussing over it too much. Okay, so I have my colours ready as usual, and some brushes that I may or may not use. I actually wondered whether I would use the dagger brush, because it has the ability to hold quite a lot of water, and I do want to use wet on wet, but at the same time it's got a good point and could give me spiky marks, so I'm maybe going to go with that one, but could possibly change to a round brush if I feel I'm not getting on with it very well. I've done a very simple drawing and without very much detail at all, as you can see, I hope. But I've actually used a pen, and I've never used a pen painting animals before, but actually I've found this week that it works really well. It gives just enough definition without getting too involved with it, and allowing the paint to flow freely beyond the marks that I've made. I've also masked off one or two whiskery areas, her little whiskers over her eyes and these whiskers here. I may have overdone it, but it doesn't matter because I can always rub some out. And the little spots in the eyes, which are really important. So I've actually masked those off as well. But as I said, I'm going to use the wet on wet technique and let the paint do a lot of the work for me, and a bit at a time. She's got a sort of pinky colour in her ear, so I'm going to mix a little bit of burnt sienna with alizarin and just allow the colour to float in the water. The water and the paint, if left alone, will actually make furry type marks for us, so allow that to happen as much as you can. She's quite pink inside her ear, and because I've got my pen mark there, I don't have to go right to the edge because I've portrayed that area. But there's also a little bit of depth going on in her ear here. So I'll try to get as much of a likeness as I can. But if I don't, I'm not going to labour over it because it'll just spoil the whole effect. So just get as near as you can without overworking and getting too involved with the detail. It's better to have a good painting that's nice to look at than labour over it, make it heavy and solid and lose that lovely freedom. So I'm mixing a little bit of the yellow ochre for her sort of gingery brown marks with a little bit of burnt sienna, I think. And I'm working from light to dark, so there's a little lighter area there and here. So popping that in, letting that float up in into the water, and then I'll put the dark area, which is going to be sepia, with a tiny drop of Payne's Grey to give it a bit of life. Yeah, this brush is quite good. So if you have a dagger brush, maybe get that out and have a try with that. And I can pop one in the post if you haven't got one and you would like one. But can you see how you can leave little areas of light, and how if you allow the paint to play in the water, it's going to make the marks for you so that you don't end up trying to put in every single whisker and hair, which would not look right. So try to avoid that. And keep your pen work to a minimum as well. That's just there to give you a nice little light drawing and some definition to show you where to go. She's actually lying in a bowl, and I've only got half of her, which is appropriate for this month because I'm only going to do a bit of her. Right, I'm on the other ear now. Which I shall just let go. So now working down to the side that I'm allowing to bleed away. And she is quite dark, but I don't have to make her as dark as I see her. Because sometimes that can just get a little bit too heavy. So if you have a black cat or a black dog or anything, try not to think that you have to make it as dark as you actually see in the actual animal. Right, a lot of water going on here now. Trying to get her little stripy area. And I've got to be more careful here to leave nice white paper. Right, going for the light area again here. Burnt umber. Sepia and Payne's Grey. There's a really quite dark little patch here, almost touching her eye. I often actually paint the eyes first. I haven't today because I didn't want to work over myself, but I might in another time paint the eyes first and allow those to dry before painting the rest, because if you don't get the eyes right, it's game over really. So it is quite important. So I might suggest to you to get those eyes done, let those dry, and then work on the rest. Right, she's light there. Light little patch under there. And she becomes slightly stripy and dark here, darker brown. And you see, if you are working wet on wet, you can see how the colours blend into the water and make the sort of marks that you're looking for, really. Nice furry marks without having to worry about putting every little whisker in. And not touching it until that process has actually been allowed to make its way and work for you. Right, she's quite brown little patch on the top of her nose there, but then she's got a light patch. So you're kind of just building up the shapes that you see in the fur and creating the right effects, hopefully. She's quite white around here. Nice little grey colour here. And white round the mouth. So if you start to get a hard edge that you don't want, just soften it with water. Just grey under here. Look back occasionally to see if you've overdone anything, and you can still lift out because it's quite wet. I'm lifting out with a drier brush. Right, carry on. Go into this dark area here. Didn't wet it. All right. She's a bit of a patchwork, isn't she? Sweet little cat, though. Callie. Still got her sister. Right. Quite dark. Part of that eye is obliterated, actually. And this bit's quite brown looking. Yeah, this brush is quite good because you can use the point and you could use the side. It seems quite scary sometimes using a lot of water, but actually you have to remember that we're using watercolour and it likes water. It will do and create lovely marks for you if you leave it alone and allow it to. I think that's a good lesson to remember, to be honest. Right, quite dark just under this part of the eye. let me work on her little nose. She's actually quite white there. But just dotting the colour in to give some shadow marks will give you a little bit of perspective here, because this bit protrudes. Although it's white, it's still got to have some shadow there. Now her little pinky nose. Again, alizarin crimson and a little touch of burnt sienna. I'm not going to wet that because I want to keep control of the shape. She's not going to look too good at all until I get the eyes in. Quite dark in there. Now, what is going to happen here, where she's light and white, I'm not going to see her whiskers unless I do something about that. So where she's got her whiskers this side, I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow underneath the masking fluid, because otherwise they wouldn't show. I'm better off doing the same thing the other side. You need to do this when it's dry, and it is quite dry in this area, so. And they have these little spotty marks, don't they? They may have to be touched up, made larger. I'm going to stop for a second now because I'm running out of time a bit, and I want it to dry before I paint the eyes. Okay, I've dried her off fairly carefully because of the masking fluid. I used the cold hairdryer, the hairdryer on cold, so that actually works better. So now we need to work on the eyes. And I can't see her eyes very well, they look really just dark, but I'm actually making it up a little bit, and I'll put a little bit of green gold in places where I think I can see that, and going by my other cat as well. If you actually paint each little individual part of the eye separately, it should work out reasonably well, rather than to block it in and make it look like a flat shape. And the iris is darker than the rest of her eye, so that's why I painted that in first, and then I'll just paint this area around here, trying to leave a little bit of that green gold colour, which I don't see very much of on that particular part of her eye. And it's dark here. Then it goes into a sort of browner colour, so I'm going to use sepia here. That was Payne's grey, because it will give a kind of navy effect. Can't see any eyelashes or anything like that. So if you don't see it, I think it's best not to try to put it in. And when the little highlight comes off, it will look better. I think animals have the most beautiful eyes. That's my half an hour up, but I can go a little bit longer, I think, because I actually didn't stop the clock when I stopped. That's my fax machine. I have no idea why that's making a noise. It never gets used. Right, a bit darker under here. That makes the eye inset, and that's the bit that protrudes. Right, I'm going to stop while I just dry that, then take the masking off. Right, I think that's okay. I like to take my masking off with a softish piece of kitchen roll rather than my finger, especially if there's quite a bit of it. It keeps it nice and flat and you don't have to touch it too many times, hopefully. But some papers will actually tear, so be a bit careful. A good paper will never tear, so I think, generally we're okay. There, the whiskers make a difference. They give some perspective. I need to get the little highlights out of my eyes. Makes a difference. Didn't see much of an highlight on that one, just a bit at the side. Okay, good. So there we have Callie. You could then go ahead and put a little bit of background around, but I'm not going to do that today. But what I am going to do, I think her eyes look okay. They're very, very bright and starey eyes. What I am going to do is take some of the colours that I've actually used and just do a bit of splattering behind. I think it always looks good when painting animals to do this, and it doesn't matter if a bit goes onto the fur, but you can shield it with paper if you wish. But it actually gives a little bit of movement. I wouldn't really have wanted any that side. If you're quick, you can take that away, especially if you use a damp sponge or something. But that just helps to give, I think, a little bit of a background, a little bit of movement. And all we need now is to pop her into her bowl. The bowl is black, but I don't think I'll go with that. I think I'm going to use a little bit of colour. Her paw was mostly white. just to indicate that she's actually lying in something without getting too involved with the detail or anything in the bowl. So there we are. She's finished, and I would suggest not doing any more than that. When it's done, it's done. I feel I've captured her. It was difficult sizing it up, but it worked okay. There are other things you can do with fur. For instance, let me put that to one side. You can, if you want to get a bit more detailed, you can pop the colour down and use your fan brush, or even maybe, oh gosh, it looks like a mouse or something. Oh, a hedgehog. So that will give you furry bits at the edge if you need to get that detailed, but I try to let the water and the paint do that work for me. But I did paint other animals this week, and I will show you, because there may be some points that I can help you with. It's a very messy table now. I painted Callie's sister, the one that I have now, Florrie, and obviously just a part of her there. And so that's really all you need to do. They are actually very quick. I mean, I've painted her in less than half an hour. So once you've done your little pen and ink drawing, or use a pencil if you feel happier, then job done. But if I put that there, if you have an animal similar, then you can freeze this on your screen and read about the materials that I used, including the colours. Have some fun. All of these animals can be found on Pixabay. Have some fun, and what I would suggest if you paint something like this is to accentuate the funny bits, you know, where he's got this funny little mouth and lots of hair. You could put more hair in, you could make the eyes bigger. Just accentuate the bits that make them that give them the character that they have, and then you'll end up with, you know, quite a fun picture, and you'll have some fun painting it. Okay, try the goat, and there's the colours. Maybe one of you've got a goat. We used to have one. But they always have such a dreamy sort of look about them. So if you painted something like the goat, you could give them, you know, half closed eyes or something, which gives them an even dreamier appearance. You know, they do look half asleep most of the time. And I like the bearded bit. Chewing grass always makes them look, you know, a little bit more characterful. I painted a llama. Laughing llama, so that's that one. I used masking fluid, I think, on most of them. A lot of similar colours on each one, but just slight variations, as you'll see. One other thing that can be used, although I don't tend to get on terribly well with it, at the end, is a white pastel pencil to just maybe pop a little bit more of the fur on at the end, at the edges or wherever. But, you know, that's just another tip. You can touch up with a fine brush and gouache at the end to put more, you know, eyelashes or hairy bits in. I know some of you've got labradoodles, so maybe you would want to have a go at painting your dog. I did a quickie with that one, and as you see, the splattering does actually give a little bit of movement and adds to the fun, I think, and the quirkiness of them. There are the colours that one is, but I don't know what colours you would use, but you can make your own colours if you haven't got a dog that colour. And what's that? That's an alpaca. A very hairy, curly-haired thing. But he's cute, you know, and it just asks to be painted, I think, and to have some fun with. and lots of masking on that one to get the sort of light curls within his hair. But lots of water, lots of loose paint, and just let the paint make the shapes for you, and you'll find that you'll end up with a good result. But if you don't, you know, don't worry, have another go. I think that's it, and I do hope you'll paint some animals. But one thing I did want to show you, another little tip. Can you remember a few weeks ago I painted this, and I hadn't realised, but I'd got hold of a pad that wasn't blocked, wasn't stuck down, so it really crinkled very badly and it irritated me. So I thought I'd have a go at straightening it after I'd painted it. So what I did was turned it over the other way and sprayed lots of water on the back side of it until it was really, really wet. Nothing on this side at all, though I don't think it would hurt it. Then placed it on the board and taped it down with the lick and stick type paper, rather not masking tape, and it's perfectly level now. And so there's a tip if you end up with a crinkled picture that you really love but don't want it to be crinkled anymore. Have a go at restretching it. So there we have Callie. Okay, so see you next week. And I think it is the beginning of a new set, and I feel some flowers coming on. So I think maybe next month we'll be working on flowers a little bit more. Okay, take care, have a good week, bye.